All right, strap yourselves in because we're going deep on this whole asteroid 2024 YR4 thing.
Oh, yeah, it's everywhere.
Right. Headlines, Earth in danger, doomsday approaching. I mean, talk about anxiety inducing, right?
Absolutely.
So we're going full deep dive mode today, going way past the clickbait, taking a close look at this video from the creator, breaking down, well, a potentially planet-altering space rock.
That's right.
So what's the real story with this 2024 YR4? Should we actually be, like, stocking up on canned goods and stuff?
Well, it's pretty amazing how a, newly discovered object out there in space can just grab everyone's attention so quickly.
Oh, for sure.
But to really get a handle on the risk here, we got to, separate the the Hollywood hype from the actual science.
Okay, so let's get into the nitty-gritty. What do we actually know about 2024 YR4 size, speed, all that good stuff?
Well, this asteroid is, it's pretty new to us, really. Discovered just last year. And it's booking it towards Earth, like 20 kilometers per second. That's incredibly fast, even in space terms.
Yeah.
And as for size, well, picture a skyscraper, like tumbling through space.
Oh, wow.
That's about the size of 2024 YR4, about 55 meters wide.
That image alone is kind of freaky, and it makes that whole comparison to the Tundiska event even more, like, unsettling, doesn't it?
Yeah.
A similar-sized object just, poof, wiped out 80 million trees over, like, a huge area in Siberia. And get this, they never even found a crater.
Right.
Suggesting it exploded in the atmosphere. I mean, that's crazy.
Oh, absolutely. The Tunguska event, that is just a stark reminder,
Yeah.
of just how much energy an object like this is carrying.
Wow.
Even without a direct hit on the ground, that atmospheric shockwave was felt around the world.
So we've got this skyscraper-sized asteroid. It's barreling towards us at, like, ridiculous speed. What are the actual odds that it hits us?
So right now, calculations put the probability of impact on December 22, 2032. Mark your calendars at 3.1%.
Oh.
And while, 3.1% might not sound like a lot, in astronomy, that's enough to get people's attention.
Yeah, no, for sure. So how do scientists even, like, arrive at that number, that 3.1%? What goes into figuring out those odds?
Well, it's pretty involved. A lot of data, a lot of variables. They basically track the asteroid's path, right? Factor in things like its speed, gravity from other, planets and stuff, even things like solar radiation pressure.
Oh, wow.
All these things can nudge the asteroid just a tiny bit.
Really?
And those little nudges over huge distances, well, that can be the difference between a hit and a miss.
That makes sense. So it's not just like drawing a line from A to B.
Right.
There's like a whole bunch of stuff going on out there.
Exactly.
But even with all that data, I'm guessing there's still some uncertainty.
Oh, yeah, for sure. There's always a margin of error. That 3.1% is, the best guess with what we know now. But as we get more info, refine those models, that number could change.
So it's a moving target. And I imagine that uncertainty makes things even trickier when it comes to, like, figuring out what to do about it.
Absolutely. But even with all that, the space agencies out there, they're not just sitting around,
Right.
They're working on planetary defense strategies, things to potentially deflect any asteroid that looks dangerous.
Yeah, the video touched on that, a few different strategies, like that DART mission. That seemed like a huge step forward in planetary defense.
It really was a milestone.
Right.
Last year, NASA basically smashed a spacecraft into a small asteroid Dimorphos.
Wow.
Changed its orbit.
Wow.
And while Dimorphos was way smaller than 2024 YR4, it showed that we can use these kinetic impactors, basically just high-speed projectiles, to move things in space.
That is so cool. Like, we can actually nudge asteroids off course. It's like science fiction, but real. But how would that, like, a DART-style mission, how would that work on something bigger, like our friend 2024 YR4?
Well, scaling up the DART strategy, it gets tougher with a bigger asteroid. You'd need a heavier impactor, moving even faster, to make enough of a difference.
So, like, more power.
Exactly. And that brings a whole new set of challenges. Building a bigger spacecraft, launching it, getting it up to speed. Those are all tough problems. But the basic idea is the same. And with DART working, scientists are feeling a lot more confident about using these things for, planetary defense.
Okay, so DART is pretty awesome, but what other techniques are out there?
Well, there's another cool one called the gravity tractor technique. It's a bit more subtle.
Okay.
Basically, you use a spacecraft and its own gravity to slowly tug an asteroid off course.
That sounds like, I don't know, space magic or something. How does that even work?
Well, it all comes down to, basic gravity. Everything with mass pulls on other stuff. So put a spacecraft near an asteroid, it'll exert a tiny pull. You wouldn't even notice it at first. But over time, that little tug can change the asteroid's path enough to, avoid hitting Earth.
It's amazing how, like, the smallest things can make a big difference over time in space.
Yeah.
It's like cosmic billiards or something.
Yeah, kind of.
But
Yeah.
I'm guessing this gravity tractor thing would take a long time to work.
Oh, yeah. It's definitely not a quick fix. You'd have to send that spacecraft up years, maybe even decades before the potential impact.
Wow.
It takes a lot of planning and patience, which, can be tough for us humans.
That's true. And then there's the nuclear option, the last resort. Right. It's kind of reassuring, but also kind of terrifying that we have that in our back pocket.
Yeah, it's definitely controversial, not something you'd jump to right away. But in a really bad situation, like if a big asteroid is heading straight for us and nothing else is going to work, well, a well-placed nuclear blast could maybe break up the asteroid or at least change its path enough to avoid, total disaster.
It's like the cure being as bad as the disease, kind of.
Yeah.
But it's crazy to think that we're even at a point where we have to think about stuff like this.
It really shows how far we've come and how much responsibility comes with that. But it also shows our ingenuity, our drive to protect our planet.
Well said. So we've got this asteroid speeding towards us. We've got some really cool, even if they're still being developed, planetary defense ideas. But before we get into like how those defenses might work, we should probably talk about what kind of damage we're even talking about here.
Yeah, that's important. To really understand what's at stake, we need to look at the potential impact scenarios. Like, what would actually happen if 2024 YR4 hit us?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And that is exactly what we're going to dive into in part 2 of this deep dive. You definitely don't want to miss it.
It's really important to, remember that looking at these impact scenarios, it's not about scaring anyone.
Right.
It's about knowing what could happen, right?
Yeah.
So we can be prepared and hopefully stop it from happening.
Exactly. It's about being informed, not freaking out.
Well,
So let's jump into those scenarios. What if 2024 YR4 hits land?
Well, the exact effects would depend on, a bunch of things where it hits, the angle, what the asteroid is even made of.
Right.
But in general, we're talking serious devastation.
The video mentioned earthquakes, buildings being destroyed. Like, how bad are we talking?
Think of like thousands of atomic bombs going off at the same time.
Oh.
The immediate blast zone would be, gone. And then the shock waves spread out, causing damage, fires, probably earthquakes.
It's hard to even imagine something like that. And
Yeah.
that's just the immediate stuff, right? What about the long-term effects?
All that dust and debris thrown up into the atmosphere, that could really mess with the climate.
How so?
Block out sunlight, make things colder, could really disrupt agriculture and ecosystems all over the world.
It's crazy how one event could have such a big impact, and that's just hitting land. What about if 2024 YR4 hits the ocean?
If it hits the ocean, get ready for some massive tsunamis.
Oh yeah, the video mentioned that.
Hundreds of feet high, spreading out from the impact site. Coastlines all over the world would be flooded. Huge damage, loss of life.
They said waves over 100 feet high. That's, like, unimaginable. Whole cities could disappear.
Yeah, the scale of the destruction is it's hard to grasp.
Yeah.
And the impact on, the economy, society, that would last for years, maybe decades.
Yeah.
Rebuilding after something like that would be a huge undertaking.
It's a pretty sobering thought. But I think it's important to remember that these scary scenarios, they're still just possibilities. There's a lot of work going on to make sure they don't actually happen.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Scientists are always working, trying to understand asteroids better, improve how we detect them, and develop those planetary defense strategies we were talking about.
Right.
The DART mission showed what we can do.
Yeah, and those other strategies like the gravity tractor and, the nuclear option, those are still being worked on, right?
Oh, definitely. Planetary defense is a constantly evolving field. They're looking at all sorts of techniques, lasers, solar sails, anything to nudge those asteroids away from us.
It's like we're playing cosmic chess, trying to outsmart these space threats.
It is a challenge, for sure. We need countries working together, new scientific discoveries, and a whole lot of creativity. But it also shows how much we care about our planet, about making sure humanity has a future.
That's a good point. When I first heard about 2024 YR4, I have to admit I was pretty worried. But learning about all the work being done to deal with it, it actually makes me feel a bit better. Like, we're not just sitting here waiting for something bad to happen.
Right.
We're actually trying to do something about it.
Exactly. That's a really important point. We're not helpless. We've got the knowledge, the technology, and the will to protect ourselves.
Speaking of doing something, the video ended with a question that really made me think.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. What would you do if 2024 YR4 was definitely going to hit Earth
Hmm.
and there was nothing we could do to stop it?
That's a deep question. Really makes you think about what's important, when you're facing the unknown.
It really does. Would you try to escape into space? Or maybe build one of those underground bunkers? Or just spend time with your family, and just enjoy this last moments? I honestly don't know what I would do.
Yeah, I don't think there's a right or wrong answer to that one. It's personal. Everyone would have to figure out what's important to them, what they believe, what scares them.
It's like a thought experiment almost, Makes you think about what it means to be human when you're up against these massive forces you can't control.
Definitely. It makes you question how we see time, our place in the universe, everything.
It's both fascinating and kind of terrifying all at once. But I think these are the kinds of questions that can lead to, some really deep understanding.
Absolutely. And that understanding can help us figure out not just how to deal with threats, but how to live our lives every single day.
That's a great way to put it. So we've gone over the science, the risks, even the philosophical stuff, all about 2024 YR4. But before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to bring it back to our listeners.
Yeah, let's hear what they think.
Exactly. What would you do if you knew an asteroid was going to hit Earth?
It's a question worth thinking about.
It really is. Share your thoughts, your hopes, your fears, everything. Let's keep this conversation going in the comments.
It's amazing. We started with just this, like asteroid, and now we're talking about science and technology and philosophy. It's been quite a journey.
It really has, hasn't it? I mean, you start with this very real threat, this, space rock hurtling toward us, and you end up thinking about, what it means to be alive.
Exactly. It's like even if everything is going to, end, there's
Yeah.
still this sense of wonder and curiosity.
Right, and that curiosity, that drive to understand and explore, that's what could help us get through these, challenges. I totally agree. So to get back to that question from the creator, the one that really got us thinking, what would you do if you knew for sure that 2024 YR4 was going to hit?
If there was nothing we could do to stop it.
Yeah. What would you do?
That's a tough one. It really makes you think about what's truly important.
Doesn't it? Like, would you try to contact aliens hoping they'd, swoop in and save us at the last minute? Or maybe finally start that passion project you've always wanted to do?
Those are some good ideas. I think for me, it would be about connection, spending time with loved ones, telling stories, just being grateful for everything.
That's really beautiful. It makes you realize that even with, something like an asteroid hanging over your head, there's still so much beauty in just being human and connecting with people.
And maybe that's the biggest lesson here. It's not just about surviving, but about really living, about appreciating what we have, the wonders of our planet, the people we love.
That's a great way to put it. So we've talked about the science, the risks, the big questions about 2024 YR4. But before we finish up this deep dive, we want to hear from you, our listeners.
Yeah, what would you do?
What would you do if you knew an asteroid was going to hit Earth and there was no stopping it? Share your thoughts, your hopes, your fears, anything. Let's keep talking about this in the comments.
And even though this is the end of our deep dive, the exploration never really ends, Keep being curious, keep asking questions, and never forget how amazing everything is both here on Earth and out there in space.
I couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks for joining us on this incredible journey through the cosmos. And until next time, keep looking up and maybe keep a spare spacesuit handy.